Honestly, I'm annoyed at polls like this. How Americans view the US? You can answer in 3 ways. The first one is the US stands above all other countries in the world. The second option is the US is one of the greatest countries in the world along with some others. And the final one is there are other countries better than the US. Those last two, they feel the same. The US is one of the greatest countries in the world along with some others, and there are other countries better than the US. What? Option 2 kind of insinuates, yeah, there might be some other countries that might be better than the US. I don't even know how I would answer this thing. I mean, I guess it all depends on where you're starting from, who you are as an individual in the US, and that's exactly what this poll is breaking down by income level, demographics, race. I feel like they had to make option 2 and option 3 here basically the same answer, because if they just said 1 is the US the best country in the world, or 2, it's not, overwhelmingly people would pick 2. I mean, to claim the US is the #1 country in the world, obviously there are plenty of people that do believe that, but I think there's a bigger majority that would say we're probably not #1, but it depends on the category, right? I would say if you're a rich person in America, we're probably one of the best places you can be, maybe #1. But if your income is under $50,000 US, I don't know. I think I'd rather take my chances in the EU personally. They're going to have a little bit more social safety nets. Just annoyed still. The US is one of the greatest countries in the world along with some others, and there are other countries better than the US. Bro, that's the same answer. Obviously, the vast majority of people in this poll picked that option number 2, that it's one of the best countries along with some others. I mean, honestly, if you're not picking the US as one of the greatest countries in the world or the US is #1, that's a pretty out there take. If you're claiming the US is not one of the greatest countries in the world, then we should just do a little experiment. Again, we're not saying it is the best country in the world, but if it's not one of the best, then you should be willing to randomly move anywhere. Let's just go ahead and generate a random country. Would you rather live in the US or the African nation of Togo? I wonder. 50-50, right? I mean, I don't know much about the Togo economy, but oh, nice. It's either 149th place in the world economically, or 147th, or 166th. However you want to classify it. That versus, we're not even going to get into it. Like I said, it's clear that option 2 is probably the best pick. It is interesting to see the people that picked blue, the US stands above all other countries. Over a quarter of Americans did say that was correct, but more men than women said it. 34% men, only 20% women. Whites and Hispanics are in complete agreement on this at 27% exactly, but Hispanics are more willing to say there are other countries better than the US at 29%. The older generation's definitely more willing to say the US is #1 than the younger age groups. I am surprised that 28% of Americans making below 50K still say America is #1. It's actually the medium income range. This might be a case of just mo money, mo problems sometimes. I mean, if you're making under 50K, let's say you're making like 25K, you're probably not being taxed all that much. Obviously, conservatives are going to believe, wow, almost 50% of conservatives believe the US is #1, and 45% of Republicans. I mean, I know it's expensive to travel, but I do think people got to travel more. I mean, there are some pretty nice places on Earth, I'm going to say. It honestly really just depends on your own individual circumstance. Like, I'll tell you this, you know what sucks about America? It's expensive as hell here. You can't even deny that. If you wanted to live somewhere cheaper, you can definitely do that. You probably have an easier time making the wealth in the US than you make that money and then get the hell out. Am I the only one here who is incredibly vexed that the latter 2 questions are not categorically exclusive? See, that is my issue. I would have loved to see the amount of people that picked the US is not one of, like, in the top 10 greatest countries in the world. That data would have fascinated me, because I know they're out there. Those answer options feel, I don't know, unbalanced, leading? I can't put my finger on it, but they just feel wrong. It would also be fascinating to see the amount of people that picked one of those options and to see how many of those people actually visited another country outside of the US or even lived somewhere outside of the US for a year. I feel like people need a little bit more nuance with this type of question. Speaking of some of the greatest countries in the world, I don't even know if I can actually say that, but we have some historical country balls: Poland, the German rectangle, and the Russia tangle, all here brought to you over at makeshift.com. There's a link down below. These will be selling out soon. Make sure you keep Poland away from Germany and Russia. This is how bad things happen to them, historically speaking. Like, at some point in this video, that Poland ball back there is probably going to get split up into 1,000 pieces. Check that link down below. Many consider this the most valuable soil on Earth. These are different forms of black soils. Some even consider this dirt to actually be more valuable than gold itself. Believe it or not, there's only a couple places on Earth you can find it. It's sprinkled throughout Germany, Czechia, a lot in Hungary, as well as Romania and Bulgaria. But this is where things get really interesting. It's almost the entirety of Ukraine, and then it's a straight line directly through Russia. I think Mongolia and China get like a tiny bit of it, but it's almost all Russia. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that know in the Russian-Ukrainian war, this is what a lot of people are actually fighting for. I mean, there's a reason why Ukraine is literally called the breadbasket of Europe. Not only does it have so much of this black soil, but it also has favorable climates and a large amount of arable land, basically farmland. They believe Ukraine has about a third of all of this black soil on Earth. And this is not even the only thing. I mean, Ukraine has a ton of very valuable resources that we're fighting for. It shouldn't be that surprising considering it's actually a very massive country. It's the second biggest in Europe behind Russia. And considering where it lies on the globe, you know, it doesn't have like a giant desert or something like that. Australia. It's just gonna have a bunch of very valuable things inside of it. If Ukraine were to fall, it looks like Russia would basically have a monopoly over this black soil resource. The more I look into this second Cold War that we Earthlings find ourselves in, I feel like it's just a battle to have as many monopolies over extremely rare resources as possible. Like China with their rare earth minerals. I know that lithium deposits very important right now. I guess if you have a monopoly over a very crucial resource, it pretty much keeps you safe forever because they're going to need to trade with you. Apparently, these same soils can be found in northern Kazakhstan as well. This is why so many Russians and other European nationalities look to live in northern Kazakhstan and did live there during the Soviet times. But certain forms of this soil can be found in North America. I just stumbled upon an article that Iowa has a ton of a very specific type. Why to even me, someone that has no idea about agriculture whatsoever, it looks like I could put any seed in there and it's going to absolutely blow up into a tree. Is it video games that taught me that? Like if the land looks like really dry and yellowy and dead, well, yeah, I'm not going to be able to grow anything on that. You might think that every country in the EU would have a unanimous decision about this, but it's not that simple. Should Ukraine join the European Union? Funny enough, it seems like the further you are from Ukraine, you are more likely to say overwhelmingly yes. Meanwhile, if you border Ukraine, you might not even be hitting the rates of 50%. Like the red countries are literally under 40% of their people saying that Ukraine should join the European Union. That's Czechia, that's Hungary, and that's Bulgaria. It should be noted, according to this poll, the EU as a whole thinks that Ukraine should join the EU at 52%, which is, you know, it's passable. I mean, it would win, especially considering there's about like 7% of people that don't know yet. It would definitely pass if 52% are yes and these just go 50-50, the unsures. But the geography breakdown here is really fascinating. Now, the Baltics and the Nordic countries overwhelmingly support Ukraine joining. I mean, at more than 70%. Iberia, Portugal, and Spain, the Netherlands, and Ireland also very pro-EU joining Ukraine. I mean, vice versa. Flip that. The big economic powerhouse though, they're a lot more unsure. That's France, Germany, and then Italy. Surprisingly, none of those countries are at a majority 50%. That's interesting. I really wish I knew more. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I don't know. There's definitely a reason. I actually don't have the answer. I don't live in the EU. I'm assuming there's some sort of economic thing here. Keep in mind, this question is extremely different than a question that asks, should Ukraine join NATO? Joining the EU comes with a whole ton of other things, other government things to consider. The EU basically acts as like almost a singular country. I mean, it's getting closer and closer to that. The problem with Ukraine is that they got Russia levels of corruption. I'm not against Ukraine joining, actually support it, but they got to deal with that first, even if it takes them until 2035 plus. This person points out, if Turkey, who has been fighting corruption until their wannabe sultan came to power, couldn't meet EU requirements to join for decades, then how the hell is Ukraine supposed to qualify? Yeah, remember, Turkey's been trying to join for like, since the 1980s? Bro, that's crazy. It's been 37 years they've been trying to get into that friendship. Imagine trying to get into the same friend group for 37 years. Bro, just give up. You're a loser. No, I don't know. I'm not against new members, but unfortunately we do have to be picky and have high standards to avoid another Hungary or Poland. I wanted to pull out a couple dollar bills to do this segment talking about where people still use cash, but I don't even have cash on me. That's how bad it is. I probably only have cash on me like 50% of the time too. This is where people still use cash or share of daily transactions in cash. Places like Myanmar, Ethiopia, and the Gambia still overwhelmingly use cash. Remember, there's a bunch of benefits to using cash too. Like, first of all, no one can track you. Like, I don't know what you got going on in your life, but if you're just not trying to get anyone to track you, you gotta use cash. Obviously, advanced economies tend to rely less on cash thanks to broader banking access. What really sucks though in developed countries when they try to get you to stop using cash, when they highly incentivize, like, no, we don't even take cash here. That's sketch. I don't like that. I know there's nothing we could do about it, and I'm not doing anything to help the situation because I'm using cards all the time, but it's just like, starting to feel a little dystopian. Does anyone else feel that way or what? Especially when you force me to use my card and then you tack on a transaction fee on top of that. You. Damn, I'm just so angry about that. Countries that have gone almost completely cashless are South Korea, China, Norway, Iceland, Australia, Scotland, England. Oh, that was so annoying in China. I remember that. We had to download a damn app and load it up, and it was, what was it called? We Pay. I hate that. US is not too far behind that. US at 16%. Oh, right there next to, hey, our best friend. Bro. I don't know if I should have said that. Damn, Finland's still over a quarter of their daily transactions being in cash. I feel like that's pretty good. Switzerland's even higher than that. It's like the highest country in the world per capita, richest country in the world, because they're probably they gotta be all economically very intelligent there. France is almost at 40%. Damn. Germany's at 51. They're not giving up either. Greece at 55. I mean, I was just complaining about going to China and having to download their weird app and linking my bank account to that. That sucked. But it does kind of suck when you have to go to a bank and do some sort of currency exchange because the country only really takes cash. That part's annoying because I'm going to get ripped off at the transaction counter. I don't know. I think point is we should just keep both methods as long as humanly possible. Keep it even. Even though it's literally inevitable, I'm sure one day, basically a lot of the developed world is going to go completely cashless. I think that is ultimately what's going to happen by the turn of the next century. Germany should be way higher. Couldn't get a cab paid with my card last time I was there, and the hotel lobby laughed at me when I tried to pay a beer from the minibar with my card. I do remember some weird things happening with me too in Germany with that. Finland is super wrong. We're entirely cashless. Okay, so be careful with some of this information. Imagine the European Union, but in Central Asia instead. I can literally hear Borat in my head saying, very nice. So there's currently a proposal to form the Community of Central Asia. It would basically be an EU-style thing. And it's actually not just Central Asia. You can also include Azerbaijan as well. This new union would have a total of about 100 million people living in it. And economically speaking, all these countries coming together might be not too bad. According to the Human Development Index, Kazakhstan by far is the nicest place to live in terms of quality of life. But maybe this would improve for the rest of the union as a whole. Keep in mind though, Kazakhstan, even though they look the largest by far, is not the most populated. It's actually Uzbekistan, and they're double Kazakhstan. It's then Tajikistan with 10 million, Azerbaijan with 10 million, and then Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan. What's really interesting about this region is it's kind of both seen as the sphere of influence of Russia and China. They both kind of look at it as like, yo, that's my zone, those are my little friends, and this really shouldn't be surprising. I mean, on one side they border Russia, and on the other they border China. Historically speaking too, obviously this region was under the Soviet Union. I wonder, since it's going to include Azerbaijan, would it possibly one day include Armenia and Georgia too? Imagine Afghanistan joining as well. Man, that's going to take like 100 years. There's also a lot of different definitions that would describe Central Asia. I mean, you could include Mongolia, even parts of China and Russia. There's got to be some very powerful forces that really want this, probably in China and Russia as well. But I'm just curious who and what industries. There's lots of great resources here. Maybe this would be easier for China and Russia to deal with all these countries if they have a union. Then they just got to, talk to the union itself, and then they get access to all this new territory. Who knows? Maybe there's some forces in the US that want this too. Might as well call it Stanistan. I do agree. That's got to be the name of the union. Stan means land. As a Central Asian, I wish we had a union like the EU or a federation like the US. We are too small and insignificant when divided, but would become a major regional power if we did unite. Okay, I'm glad he said it, because Central Asia individually, they don't have a whole lot of power. This is the world's longest national highway. It's a highway so long, it literally is built around a single continent. That's Australia. Does it connect down to Tasmania as well? No, I don't think so. But I didn't even know Australia had this, to be honest. And I definitely didn't know they all named it the same number. It's all the one. Sorry, that's my California coming out. They don't say the one. It's Australia's Highway 1. Basically, yes. I'm assuming they probably built this after World War II, sometime when the US also built their highway. Well, all of our highways, we got a bunch. Yep, it was created in 1955. I kind of expected that. That's perfect. Let me guess too, from Melbourne to Sydney to Brisbane, it's probably absolute chaos. Like a lot of traffic. Well, maybe in those individual cities, not in between the cities, but Australia is not very dense. This is where everyone actually lives though. They literally just live in this corner of Australia. This is all a desert. This is probably extremely remote. Because of that, that probably makes the highway really, really beautiful. Driving the total length of Australia's Highway 1, known as the Big Lap, takes anywhere from 3 months to a year? How? How does it take that long? I know Australia's massive, but it says it would take 16 months. Okay, are you going to... Okay, maybe that's why, like, they're going to, like, deep in. I mean, I'm assuming you also want to kind of stop and take a look at things. You don't want to be just driving for a year straight, right? Look at how weird all the little city names are in Australia. When I was in Australia, Australians love to tell foreigners that you could save, I can't remember how many miles, by going around counterclockwise as you'd be driving on the inside track. I see no one here has mentioned it. What? What? I mean, I guess if over the course of a year, maybe they're right. You'd save like 10 miles if you drive counterclockwise because it's so long, maybe? I don't know. Bro, yeah, this literally sounds like Mad Max, basically. That drive, I'm sorry, that seems like it would be just so much of nothing. Which countries are femdomed? Can I say that? This actually is a lot darker in certain places than you might expect. There's a very big reason why there's way more females in Russia and Ukraine than males. Does anyone want to take a guess? Any guesses out there? There probably used to be more males, and then bad things happened, and now they don't live there anymore. In fact, they don't live on Earth anymore. Crazy thing, though, is this actually has been a tradition inside of Russia for a while now, dating back to World War I. All the wars have made it so that, well, there's just like a lot more women here. There's all sorts of interesting history to the demographics of why certain countries are more male than female or vice versa. Typically, it gets pretty dark. I mean, whether you're talking about why a country is more male dominated than female or vice versa. I mean, China, for instance. Does anyone want to take a guess there? There's way more men in China because they didn't want women for a long time. That one child policy. Funny enough, I see so many like Instagram reels and TikToks about like how women are treated in China way better than they are here in the US. And I believe that. I think currently they definitely do get treated very great in China because there's so little of them. There's a scarcity of women in China because literally, how do I even phrase this? So dark. China for like 50 years was heavily incentivized to get rid of their female babies. So being a woman in China sounds great right now, but I don't know if I'd want to take the risk of being born in China. Because I don't even know if I'd be here right now. What is it, like 50 million? I read a crazy statistic that it was like 50 million got wiped out. It's hard to know the information, honestly, but I mean, this is estimating 10 to 15 missing females in China, at least. And again, it only continues to get darker when looking at the Arabian Peninsula. Why are there so much more males in the Arabian Peninsula than females? I think there's a couple of reasons, but I know the big one is the amount of imported labor. They import a ton of people from India or like the Philippines to work on their like mega projects. They also get treated extremely, extremely poorly. If you looked into the Qatar World Cup, yeah, man, like all this stuff, way darker than you would expect. Remember, on average, human beings tend to have slightly more male babies than female babies because that's like an evolutionary quirk. Apparently, it's because the boys would die a lot faster or earlier, or in war, guys are dumber. Let me attest to that. I probably shouldn't even be here either. I was doing some dumb things as a kid. Yes, also keep in mind, women live longer. So the age group of the women overwhelmingly in certain countries might be over the age of like 65. It's how we got here that's sad. Since 1999, it's illegal in India to have an ultrasound unless there is a medical reason, too much gender selection before birth. Holy crap. Why is this map so much darker than it seems? For younger demographics, men typically outnumber women. Russia will always have more women than men because of its war machine that perpetually throws men into the meat grinder. Yeah, the blue countries are not, in fact, gay paradises. In fact, they're actually one of the worst places you could go to. If you were a gay man, I would not advise going to some of these heavily blue countries. And here's a big thank you to this month's patrons. Can white people smell the rain? It's pronounced Tour de Sillas, Drew. DruuuWu Labubu. Conquered Bread. White Grape of the Pirates. Never change, Drew. Unless you want to. LuxembourgLover. Fredrik Tibblin. Pavlik. KingBearHaze. NordTyrol. LoreTrack. What's your name here? Nolan. Check the Patreon link down below in the description.